محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. We'll start off the program with Hadith Kisa, inshallah. Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa Ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل حسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتعذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتعذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتعذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء فقال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيئي وخليفتي وصاحب لواء قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتعذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحمتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يعلمني ما يعلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنه مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال أمين جبرائيل: يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال جبرائيل: يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم، قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزة وجلاله: إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله عليك السلام: يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم، قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. صل على محمد. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينه إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي: رسول الله يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه، ولا مهموم إلا وكشف الله غمه، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. We'll begin the program, inshallah, with Al-HAJJ Muhammad Abbas and Sheikh Muhammad MEHDI, who will present a question-answer session, inshallah. And then after that, we'll have the qasidas by our local reciters. Inshallah, we'll welcome the scholars, inshallah, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه اللهم صل على Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. My respected elders, respected eminence, Sheikh Muhammad Mehdi, respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it is a great opportunity to be able to gather today, alhamdulillah, to celebrate this very, very auspicious Eid, the greatest Eid, where we celebrate the wilayah of our dear Imam Ali alayhi salam. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the bottom of our hearts for giving us this opportunity of enjoying the beauty and the spirituality of wilayah. If it wasn't for the divine grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us, we would have not been here. Alhamdulillah, we are honored to have His Eminence, respected Sheikh Muhammad Mehdi. It is always nice to and important to have a scholar of the caliber of Sheikh Muhammad Mehdi in our midst. So inshallah, Abbas uncle will tell us more about the program today, but the idea here is to really stress Sheikh Muhammad Mehdi out with all our questions about Ghadeer and Imam Ali alayhi salam. He looks very relaxed, but we want to try and get him flustered a little. Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I think Hajj Muhammad is setting you up for me. Oh, you. How are you, Sheikh?
Oh,
I'm just going to move this back so the ladies can participate as well. If you don't mind. I'll just move this back for the ladies can also see the speakers. Okay. Yes, it's coming. The board is coming. All right. Before we start, it's Eid E Ghadeer, so we need to laugh a little bit. So. Sheikh Muhammad, Yaqeen means someone who has got foresight, right?
Yaqeen?
Yeah.
That's certainty.
Certainty. I'm certain you had a steak on Wednesday.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's okay. No, I want to come to another part of a story on that Wednesday. Then someone said, park your car anywhere and you will not get fined. Am I right?
Yes.
And what happened?
I got fined.
Do you know who the person was who told you that confidently you will not get fined?
I don't know. He might be present in this room at the moment.
No, alhamdulillah, we had a good laugh on Wednesday, and it's cost me a fortune, because the Sheikh said it's not just the fine you have to pay, it's the stupidity that comes with it. So I have got that a fair bit. So what we're going to do, we've done this before. Ahmed, if you can ask Zora if she can help on the ladies' side for me as well. With Eid E Ghadeer, we did this a few years ago when we had COVID restrictions, and Sheikh Muhammad and I think we did it over Zoom, and we had a bit of a fun laugh, and we had a good Q&A session as well. So to those who are on YouTube, you can send your questions in there, and I'll pick them up from there. But before we ask the questions and discuss the topic today, and it's to be very interactive, the question is available to anyone to ask. Also, please, you're welcome to ask. We are looking for the most thoughtful and thought-provoking question. So the person who can ask the question that really stumps the sheikhs, that we want to see what they don't know. So it's not just about that. We want to ask the questions that they may not know. So just to start the procedure, I guess, when I was growing up, Eid E Ghadeer did not have the same prominence, and I know I'm older than all of you here. Eid E Ghadeer did not have the prominence that it has today. We knew Eid al-Fitr, we knew Eid al-Adha, we all celebrated Eid al-Fitr because it was the end of Ramadan and we were all excited for it. And we had Eid al-Adha because, you know, related to Hajj. But over the last 10 years or so, we have seen the importance of Eid E Ghadeer increase to the point where we now have quotations, as you started, as the greatest of Eids. One Why wasn't it as prominent 10, 20 years ago? And it has suddenly come into limelight in such a way, right? It wasn't as promoted before. And I think if you go back to the speakers before, at the time of Eid E Ghadeer, you know, we didn't treat it the same way. The second thing is that we, as some people say, that we as the Shias have made it the greatest of all Eids. That it's not really the greatest of all Eids, right? So trying to, I guess, answer both questions to start me off. By that time, everyone else will be thinking of questions. To the sisters there, Zora will be there to, if you've got questions as well. So we'll go from there. But I'll hand over first to you with that question. You both have to answer. You both have to answer. No. You both have to answer. Sorry, there's no escaping. Both of you got to answer.
I'll answer this, but he's got the next one.
No, you have to both answer every question. Because we want to rate, we're going to give you marks out of 10 for every
Firstly,
question.
Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Brother Hajj Abbas, I beg to differ. It's not only Eid E Ghadeer, it's everything. If you look, and I think the turning point that where everything changed was the 80s and the 90s. Before that, even when you listen to Majlis Fatima al-Zahra, they never used to go into detail when I was a child, not as much as they're going now. Even the Majalis of Muharram, they used to be, like I'm talking about from my Lebanese background, they used to actually call the 10th Yom al-Falli, which means the day where everyone befell, everyone goes home and it finishes. Now, the Majalis, like even you have some sentence, they keep going till the 8th of Rabi' al-Awwal, a Majlis every night. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam's martyrdom, they do all three narrations. Everything has changed. Why? Because before the Shia were not able to breathe. If you take a look historically, over the years, you were under, before the vice grip of the Ottoman Empire, you had every other government that ruled with an iron fist. And it wasn't until the rise of the Shia and being able to teach our religion began in Thawrat al-Ashreen in the 1920s, actually even before that, when the British tried to come into Iran. And at the time, Al-Mirza Shirazi was before Al-Khandul Khurasani. The Marja at the time, he made a hukum that no one was allowed to buy tobacco or deal with tobacco. And that was the beginning of our stances. And then that was the end of the Qajari dynasty. I think the last Shah of the Qajaris was shot dead by a rusty pistol at the time, I think it was. And then the Pahlavis came into power, and we went through another little blackout. In Turkey, we had Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, and then we went through the blackout in Iran with the Pahlavi dynasty. Then around these regions, because you remember the central point's always Persia, because it's in the middle of Asia and the Arab world, so it was a central point. When they were able to have the Islamic Revolution in 1979, again there was a resurgence to Tashayyu. And it's like we are really in the golden era of Tashayyu. We can do things publicly like we've never been able to. And also the other things, we have more access. We're able to read narrations differently now. Like we got search engines that things have come out, and we're starting to give more importance to all these events. So it's not that we didn't give it significance. Now we can breathe. We can actually speak our minds. We're not worried. There's still slaughter everywhere. It still exists, but not like before. Before it was all in silence. People would kill, no one would know about it. Majalis had to be done in secret. Now it's different. It's come forth. Now the second part of your question, is it the Shia that had given it importance? No. This day and the day of Ghadeer is something recognized by the Sunnis. in so many ways. Even the ones that speak of, there's not one person that says, for example, some of the narrators, like for example, I'll give you an example, At-Tabari, he has 75 different chains for the day of Ghadir. 75 different ways that you can narrate the day of Ghadir. One of the ulama, I think it's Al-Albani, I can't remember who it was, because I know from Tabari, he says, I consider all the hadith of Tabari to be sahih, except anything that links to the Khilafah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. They're not sahih. So in other words, I don't care about their chain, I don't care about anything. It's always been a war against this. Why is it the most important Eid? What was the biggest ruckus? What was the biggest noise that was made in the heavens? The biggest problem was the issue of Khilafah in the heavens. When Allah Azza wa Jal says, I will make a Khalifa on the earth, there was always an objection at that time. On the earth, it's the same thing on the earth. Every prophet, we're not talking, see, one of the things we say wrong, we generally say it's the appointment of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It's the coronation of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He was always the Imam. He was the Imam from the very beginning. Allah, and this is Rasulullah, khutbah Shahr Ramadan al-Mubarak. He says, Inna Allah khalaqani wa iyyak. Allah created me and He created you. Wastafani wa iyyak. This is when God first created. There was nothing. No dinosaurs, no matter whatever they're thinking about. Nothing. When God first created, He created a nur. He cut this, cleft it in half. The nur, He said to one part, Kun Muhammad, and to the other part, Kun Ali. This is from the very beginning. This is before everything, that they were created at the very beginning. And every prophet was tested with Wilayat Amir al-Mu'minin. It's not just now. Just like when we hear about Muharram, every prophet bled in Karbala, yes or no? Then every prophet suffered and feel what was going to happen in Karbala. This isn't something that was decided yesterday. This is Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah has planned how this religion is. He has set this, and this is the grand day. In fact, in the narrations, this day wasn't, if you look at the narrations, they speak about this before. Just like the marriage of Fatima and Ali was in the heavens before it was on the earth. The appointment, as we mentioned, is long ago. This is a day where we, Ahl al-Ard, it's time for us to give Him, this, we could say, use the word coronation. Sorry for the long answer, but that's pretty much what it was. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala.
Anyone want to jump in with a question? Because I've got lists of them. I can keep going. So anyone? Lady side, anyone there? You can just stand up to the front there. Anyone? No questions yet? Well, I'll keep going. It's going to be a conversation between us, if you don't mind, until they have a bit more courage to ask a question. All right. So explain exactly how this incident took place, means the coronation of Imam Ali at Ghadir. Right? It was, we know in summary of where it was and after the pilgrimage, but what was the process of having everyone there, and where was it there, and why was it there, and the witnesses, I guess, that were there?
Please, Sheikh. I'm transcribing this conversation. Sheikh, there's no need for respect. I'm literally just sitting the showpiece.
I'll make sure he answers the next question.
The next one is...
This to go with this one.
He's giving you
Yes.
the easy ones. Then.
Give him the hard ones. Good on you. I know you got my back. Okay, how did the event take place? See, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he said to the people in Hajjat al-Wada, this is his last pilgrimage. A lot of people even try and say it was his only pilgrimage. This isn't true. We've got hadith that Rasulullah performed Hajj 20 times. Now, yes, in secret. The thing is, you think about it, that even in one of the narrations, and I don't want to digress, but this is important. Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he mentions the deliverance of the Prophet, the Mab'ath, and Nabu Sharif, he said, I believed in Rasulullah wa bintu Khuwaylid and Khadija. He says, and bintu Khuwaylid, we believed for thalathu hujaj. Now, the narrators will say that thalathu hujaj, 3 hujaj, means 3 years. But why would he say hujaj? 3, the word means 3 hajj, 3 pilgrimages. So there is a possibility that they were all doing pilgrimage at that time in secret. So on the final pilgrimage, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ali, who speaks only from what Allah Azza wa Jal tells him to speak, as the Quran clearly dictates, he says to them, Inni rahilun ankum an qareeb. I'm going to leave very soon. I won't be around. So this final pilgrimage, as they leave, there is an oasis in Ghadeer Khum. This is where obviously the Ghadeer meaning a pond, but it's where the oasis is. The actual place, if anyone ever gets to go there, people that have been there will tell you about how the region is. The acoustics of it are even chosen. Rasulullah chose it in a place where he is able, it's like in a ravine. It's like in a valley where the voice can come out really loud. It's like it's perfectly chosen, you know, in a way where everyone can hear what I have to say. And secondly, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he makes sure that the people turn up and make sure everyone's there after the Hajj. So he's made them stop, because when people used to leave Mecca, they're heading towards Medina, he'd made sure that everyone would stop and people would meet there, and they waited for a few days to make sure everyone had. So long he waited for an hour, made sure that the majority of people there, over 100,000 people, were present. Once they were present, then he got up, because Rasulullah needs to make sure that there's no doubt about what he's about to say. So he got up and he said to the people, Ansibuni. Ayyuhan nas ansibuni. In other words, when we say ansibuni, what's my nasab? Who am I? What's my name? Why did he do this? So no one can say, oh, there was this dark figure that got up, they didn't know who it was. Or as, remember that guy that was at the Masjid al-Nabawi Sharif, and the Prophet said, after me there will be 12 caliphs, that Islam is not finished until 12 caliphs come after me. And then he said, and then the narrator says that I asked him, what else did he say? He said, I didn't hear the rest. Because the Prophet named them. Obviously, he went deaf for that moment, you know. So Rasulullah got up to make sure everyone knew who he was. So there's no ambiguity. You know, I get up and say, Ansibuni. And they said to him, Anta Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib ibn Hisham, or ibn Hashim afwan, ibn Abdi Manaf. So they actually, the people said, that's who you are. Ansibuni. Say where I'm from, who are my forefathers. So you know who's up here talking, there's no doubt here. And they said, all right. And then he said to them, Alastu awla minkum min anfusikum? Do I have more authority over you than yourself? They said, Bala ya Rasulullah. Yes. And then he said, Wa awla bihi minkum? Do I have more authority over you? They said, Bala. And then he looked towards the heaven and he said, Allahumma shahad. Oh, you know when Allah Azza wa Jal, when we go to the Hajj, we go past the Kaaba, when we're doing tawaf, we get to Hajar al-Asad or Hajar al-Aswad, and we raise our hand. And what do we say? Amanati. The amana. What amana are we talking about? Wa ahdi. What are we talking about? When Allah took the covenant from the loins of Adam, wa ashhadahum ala anfusihim, alastu bi rabbikum. Allah said, am I not your God? Qalu bala. Did we? So when we go there, we say, Allah, we're still shadli bil muwafat. Oh Allah, I'm still on the original covenant we made. I still believe in you. So he looked up and he said, now I'm going to make sure you testify to this. He said, Allahumma ashhad. And they all said the same thing, Allahumma ashhad. Then he repeated it a second time. They repeated it a second time. Then he repeated it a third time. They repeated it a third time. Could you imagine what's he trying to do? He wants to make sure everyone is certain. Because he's about to give instructions. And these instructions, if you look at, it's got to be clear. I used last night in my lecture, I told them it's like the Art of War for Sun Tzu. You know, the Art of War for Sun Tzu, which is, it's a document people use for everything. I use it for absolutely anything. You know, when I was a child, when I was young, and we used to play Risk, remember Risk, the board game? I used to use the Art of War in order to how win, the strategy, the way you think and everything. One of the things in the Art of War and everything, businesses are run on the Art of War. He says that if the commander, Sun Tzu says, if the commander gives clear, he gives clear instructions, or sorry, does not give clear instructions, and the instructions are not explicit, then it is the fault, sorry, it's, if the general does not give clear and explicit instructions, then it's his fault if the soldier doesn't listen. So you know, when I want my child to do something and it's important, I told them what I want, and then I said, repeat it to me. Then they repeat it, and I say, explain what I mean. There's a reason why I do that. Because then I know if they stuff up, it's their fault. I've told them exactly what needs to be done. It's not like when you say, can you call me when you get inside? And then the child says, no, I thought you said, call you if I don't get inside. Do you know what I mean? So you make sure the command, so Rasulullah is making sure that these people have no doubt about what he's saying. That's the build-up. Then he raises the hand of Amir al-Mu'minin. It says until their armpits are showing. So they've raised, you know how they're wearing the gown, their clothing and that. It's not like wearing what we're wearing now. But they raise their hands so high that everyone can see. And the Rasulullah stays holding their hands. Like a boxing match in the past. You know, in the past today, even today they still do it. When they hold the winner's hand, they hold it up and then they show one side, then they show the second side, third side, fourth side. So no one has a doubt whose hand I'm holding up. That's the winner. So he holds his hand stays aloft until the verse comes down. The verse that says, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. Before that, he keeps his hand up the whole time to make sure. Then he says, see what I just said about myself? Man kuntu ana mawla lahu wa awla bihi. Whoever I am the master of, and whoever I have more authority over, fa'al hada ali, or fa'hada ali, or fa'ali. Mawla lahu wa awla bihi. Same thing. Like in other words, it's me. Yani I'm not saying this, Rasulullah is not saying this person's second in charge. He says he is the master and the commander. Like I'm the, in another hadith, he says, Anta khalifati fi hayati wa ba'da mawti. You're there all the time. So when he makes this clear, then he doesn't stop there. He starts to work on the resistance. He says, فَقُمْ يَا أَبَا بَكْرٍ. The first person he calls up, فَبَايَعَ لِعَلِيٍّ بِإِمَارَةِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. He says, give allegiance, not to say, good on you, you're the Prophet's friend. No. Give bay'ah, pay homage, that he is the Amir of the Mu'minin. He is the commander of the faithful. And so he does. After he does, he says, Qum ya Umar. Listen, one after the other he calls them. Then he says, Qum ya Uthman. Then Talha, Zubair, he names them. All the celebrities get called up. The 10 that are Mubashirin bil Jannah, as they call them. One after the other. Brings them in, make sure they give allegiance. Why? So there's no ambiguity. We know who's being called. When this is done, then Umar comes up, Ibn al-Khattab, and says, Bakhin lak ya ibn Abi Talib. Congratulates him. Asbahtu mawlay wa mawla. You are now my master. And you are the master of all the believers. And this story is a story that's told over and over and over again in narrations, and there's no doubt about what took place here. You know, it wasn't a story of love. It wasn't me making a video to tell people, this is my friend. People don't do this. You know, it's not like, you know, when they do a cameo in someone else's television show, cross promotion. No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't Rasulullah promoting that this guy's my friend, you know, everyone be friends with my friend. It's just ridiculous to say this. So sorry about the long answer, but I just wanted to give the story in the detail that it is.
Allah salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Just expanding on the question, this is for Sheikh Muhammad, Hajj Muhammad Abbas VIRJE. So how come it's not explicit in the Quran, and then the verses that are in the Quran are not like in sequential order? They're a little bit in different locations.
Was it meant to be a difficult question, Abbas Uncle? It was it's a very technical question. So I think, I think it's a very common question that's usually asked not only outside the Shia school of thought, but even outside. So the two ayat that are usually referenced to Ghadir are found in Surah Al-Ma'idah. I think it's ayah number 3 and ayah number 67. These are the two ayat, one that was revealed to the Holy Prophet ﷺ before the announcement, and then one that was revealed after. So Abbas Uncle's question was, why are they not in chronological order? So ayah number 3 in Surah Al-Ma'idah comes right after the announcement. Ayah number 67, Balligh ma unzila ilayk, comes before the announcement. So it seems to be switched, number one. Number two, there seems to be quite a bit of a gap, almost 50 odd ayat between the two verses. That's the first thing. Secondly, if Ghadir is such a significant event, the greatest Eid, something that completed religion, perfected religion, completed God's favors upon humanity, why isn't there explicit mention of Ghadir or Imam Ali alayhi salam successorship in the Holy Quran? So this is a very common question, and I think it's important to especially discuss it with our youngsters as well. So first and foremost is, not every single detail is mentioned in the Holy Quran, right? So it's pretty obvious that Salah, for example, which is Amududdin, the pillar of religion, the details of Salah are not found in the Quran. So everyone knows that we need to pray, but no one knows, the Quran doesn't mention how many rak'ah there in Maghrib or Isha or Dhuhr and Asr, or what are the details of prayer, how do we pray? So of course, as Quran says, you go to those who have been sent down to explain the book. One of the primary roles of the Holy Prophet is لِيُبَيِّنَ مَا نُزِلَ إِلَيْهِمْ, to explain to the people what has been revealed to them. So Prophet ﷺ explains the Quran, and therefore Prophet ﷺ says towards the end of his life, I leave behind you two weighty things, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. مَا إِن تَمَسَّكْتُمْ بِهِمَا, you need to hold on to these together to reach salvation. The Quran alone would not be enough. So you need those who explain the Quran to be taken together with the Holy Quran. Right? So that's the first thing. So not every detail is mentioned in the Holy Quran. You need the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam to explain it. Right? So this is where the hadith of Ghadir come in. Right? So perhaps the most authentic, widely narrated hadith is the hadith of Ghadir, both in Sunni and Shia books. We can prove Ghadir just from the books of the Ahlul Sunnah. That's number one. Number two is, Sheikh, do you want to add to this?
Keep going.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing that's very important is that this would have been a test for the believers. The fact that it hasn't explicitly been mentioned, Imam Ali alayhi salam's wilayah hasn't explicitly been mentioned in the Holy Quran. Meaning, how much trust, faith, loyalty did the community, the ummah, have to the words of the Holy Prophet? So that's the other thing. As in Dua Nutbah we read, لولا أنت يا علي, Prophet ﷺ tells Imam Ali alayhi salam, لولا أنت يا علي لم يعرف المؤمنون بعدي. If it wasn't for you, O Ali, the believers would not be known. So you are that test, that litmus test to see, that sieves out the hypocrites from the believers. How many of those who actually listened to what I was saying? Ghadir was just the icing on the cake. Prophet ﷺ had mentioned Imam Ali alayhi salam throughout his life. The exemplary qualities of Imam Ali alayhi salam were manifested throughout life of the Prophet ﷺ's life. Why was there an issue right to the end? Why was there a total difference after the Prophet ﷺ passes away? So this was a filtering process between who are the real loyal followers of the Holy Prophet and who are the hypocrites. And that was exposed. So that's the other. And the third reason, very quickly, why isn't the name of Imam Ali alayhi salam mentioned explicitly in the Holy Quran? We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed this book as a miracle right to the end of time. It has to last right to the end of the time. Allah says, we have revealed this book, وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ, and we are those who will protect this book. One of the ways in which the Quran naturally protects itself is the way it delivers its message. If Imam Ali alayhi salam's name was mentioned directly, explicitly in the Holy Quran, in the same way that the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt did everything that they possibly could to kill the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, either by sword or by poisoning, they would have gone to any measure to destroy that which is mentioned in the Holy Quran. So, by not making direct, explicit mention of Imam Ali alayhi salam in the Holy Quran, this is a way the Quran organically protects itself up to the end of time. However, there are several ayat in the Holy Quran where the only reference in the Holy Quran is none other than Imam Ali alayhi salam, from both the Sunni and the Shia hadith. So there was no need to explicitly mention Imam Ali, inshallah. I hope that answers the question.
Sorry, one second. I have two questions before that.
It's
good to see your brother. It's good to see your brother setting you up. It's good to see.
That's why. Look, as Sheikh Muhammad Abbas mentioned, yes, the Quran isn't put in chronological order. Do you remember the Quran was a book at the time of Rasulullah? And you obviously all know that all hadith, and the Quran is hadith pretty much, that was compiled as a book. All hadith was burnt by Abu Bakr. This is like known by Shia and Sunnah, completely after the Islam, because they weren't allowed. Alam al-Amini in Kitab al-Ghadeer, and if you read the first volume of As-Sirah Sahih and Nabawiyya for Sayyid Ja'far Murtad al-Amali, the first volume talks about how they suppressed narration of the Prophet. So then the Quran was put together, okay, at the time by several people. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, looked over the book and said, this is sufficient, so it is the book. Okay, it might have been, that's the order it's meant to be in. Okay, some people come and challenge and say, oh, the Quran has been changed. The answer to that is simple. If the Quran was changed, the Wahhabi that wants to cut your head off reads the same book you read. Over 1,400 years, it would have completely changed altogether. They've attempted to change things. Even if you look in the translations, they've attempted to change things within it, but nothing's been changed. You know, well, it says ABBAS wa tawalla. They write the Prophet frowned instead of writing he frowned in English. But the Arabic is still the same text that was there at the time. Now, that's why of the order. As for, was it possibly put like this at the Prophet's time? Yes. Maybe Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Baqarah were the first at the Quran, beginning of the Quran, and Surah Al-Nas was the last surah. It's possible. But in terms of revelation, nothing's in order in revelation. The first thing to be revealed, according to Sunnah and Shia, the most prominent, it says, was the first 5 verses of Iqra. Then they say that it was the verse of Ya ayyuhal Muddathir, I think it is, or Muzammil. Is it Muzammil or Muddathir also? Yeah, Muddathir was the second one, but that wasn't the whole thing, it was the first few verses as well. And then bits and pieces came out here and there, and then they were put together. But some surah were revealed in completion, like Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, was completely revealed in one go, and like Surah Al-Fatiha, others were revealed bits and pieces here and there. So as for the compilation of the Quran, it's possibly that's the order it was compiled at the time of the Prophet, or it's possibly it was compiled in that order. Like there's nothing missing in it, but the compilation was like that. But it's possible that the orders could have been. It's possible. We're not saying it's a fact. However, But what Sheikh, I'm giving you one opinion. What Sheikh Muhammad Abbas said is very important. He said that the Quran organically protects itself. If you notice, the verse, Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Dinakum, is in Surah Al-Ma'idah verse 3. What's it talking about at first? What's the beginning of the verse talks about? It talks about what's permissible to eat and not. Okay, and even after it says that, it goes back to this. It's like it's been put in the middle so it doesn't get removed. Just like Ayat al-Tathir. How's Ayat al-Tathir begin? Verse 33 of Surah Al-Ahzab, how's it begin? It starts off by saying, وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ. That's how the verse starts. وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَ تَبَرُّجِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى وَأَقَمْنَ الصَّلَاةَ وَآتِينَ الزَّكَاةَ وَأَطَعْنَا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنكُمْ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. So it begins talking about the wives of the Prophet. And then inside, secretly, even though, as Sheikh Muhammad Abbas mentioned, all Sunni and Shia narrators narrate meanings of the verses being Ali ibn Abi Talib. The verse of Tathir, the first part they say is the wives of the Prophet. The second part where it says Innama yurid, not one narrator worth his salt says the wives are included. They all say it's only the five and no one else because they know. And the other thing I wanted to mention is when people ask, this is one of the biggest things they bring up, people always mention, because people watch Speaker's Corner and they watch all these debates on YouTube, and the guy will come up and say, show me Imam Ali in the Quran. He reminds me of Iblis. Because Iblis said to Nabi Isa, he said, do you know when God will take your life? You've heard of the temptations of Christ. He said, do you know when God will take your life? He said, yes. He said, all right, throw yourself from the cliff. He said, why? He said, because if your life's not up now, throw yourself in the cliff, see if, if you die or not. And Isa said to Iblis, Allah tests the creation, not the creation tests Allah. These people, what they want, it's like the atheist. You've heard the atheist? If God is here, why doesn't he stick his head from behind the clouds and say, I'm here so everyone will believe? You've heard this a lot. This is the same as Ali in the Quran. Once, I think I've mentioned this, I'm not sure if I've mentioned it here. We were in Medina al-Munawwara, and we were doing dua, and we're talking to Rasulullah. And this holy guard standing in front of the shrine turns around and he says, he pulls out, someone's subha is taken, his prayer beads, and he puts it into the darih of Rasulullah, and says, Ya Muhammad. He said, if you are here, take these beads. And then he says, see, he's not alive, he doesn't hear, he can't act. That's why he doesn't take the beads. And this old sheikh was with us. He had a pen in his pocket. He said, Ya Allah, if you are here, take my pen. And he said, see, Allah's not here, he's not taking my pen. Same logic. Do you understand what I mean? So when someone says, if Ali's not in the Quran, why isn't it explicit? You aren't the one that chooses the conditions of the test. Otherwise, imagine everyone had the right to choose. Even if they were, do you think they'd actually follow? If they were, do you think they'd actually follow? But they already they see 1,000,001 miracles a day and they don't follow. 1,000,001 miracles you see a day. Every single day, the birth of a child, for example. If you go into the details of the birth of a child, you go into details of the growth of a plant, a seed into a sapling, into a tree, all the miracles of existence that you see every day, and people say God doesn't exist. And all the hadith that they have. See, whenever, I'm just going to tell you something to say to someone. When anyone ever tells you, is Ali in the Quran, before you start, say, do you believe in hadith? He says, I want to know in the Quran. Say, okay, before I begin, I want you to say all your hadith books are batil. Once you say, I testify that all the hadith books are batil, then we'll debate using the Quran. As long as you believe in hadith, I'm using hadith. Put him in that position. Because if he doesn't matter. He's entered into a pitfall as well. Because then you say, then how? Because the reality of it is that's how they make you follow their path. For example, if you ask someone, why do you think I'm a kafir? I once asked someone, why do you think I'm a kafir? Why do you think we're off of the week? He said, because you curse so and so and so and so. I said, beautiful. Where in the Quran does it say explicitly that I'm not allowed to curse so and so and so and so? Where? Because use the same rhetoric they use, the same ideology they use. Sorry, I went a bit on this point, but what Sheikh Muhammad Abbas said was sufficient, that in order for the Quran to protect itself, that's what's one of the reasons why it's not mentioned.
Thank you, Sheikh. Razaba, I know you've got a question. Before you ask the question, I know Sheikh is waiting some important information. The test match has been delayed due to rain. It's starting shortly. Any ideas on who's going to win the game while we're here?
That's good.
Anyone, any idea who's going to win the game?
If it keeps raining.
No, if it stops raining. It's still 2 days after this.
Oh, it's a very fast outfield. So I think if you can...
You need to use your mic. I think everyone would be interested.
No, I'm just saying it's a very fast outfield. Yeah. It's very like there's no anything that gets hit out there is running to the boundary. So if Australia collapses, if they put up a target of under 300, the English should get it.
See, I'm trying to make sure that everyone here knows that since you know cricket, you must know everything, right?
No.
So you can sit for
I
hours.
want them to win, so your James Anderson analogy falls apart, because I think they will.
And he's too old. He hasn't won anything. Anyway, Razak, before your question, I want to just ask one. This will be my last question. I'm hoping that we have more questions. Sheikh Mohammed, I'm asking this question to you because you would have been here at that time. And we're talking about cricket, the founder of World Series Cricket, Kerry Packer, you must remember one day he had a severe heart failure and he collapsed at a polo game. And incidentally, when he collapsed, they called emergency. And in New South Wales at that time, there was only one ambulance that had the special defibrillator, right? And that one ambulance just happened to be near the polo game. They go there, he gets saved, goes to hospital. Victor Chang does the open heart surgery. After the surgery, it's folklore. He says, well, I'll pay for half of the cost of putting a defibrillator in every New South Wales ambulance, and the New South Wales government will pay the other half. He didn't ask permission, he said they will. When we hear that, we accept that look at this miracle, the ambulance happened to be in the right place, and you hear all the stories that this happens. A couple of nights ago, in the UK, in Glasgow, a young man suffers a heart attack. There's doctors there, the NHS head of there, the Scottish parliamentarians were there. It was a big event. And the person collapsed. They've done everything. They've revived him. It's flatlined, few minutes on there. And there's a video clip of the Sheikh who then narrates the story the next day, and with all the witnesses are there. But when it's from our community and when our Sheikhs talk about it, we need more proof. I mean, it's not enough that there was the head of the NHS, there was the Scottish parliamentarian there was quite a few other people that were there, scholars, etc. Whenever it becomes something that is to show that the person, and the reason I'm relating the story is because the clip explains how the father, when he was being told, and he said, well, if my son dies today, it's Eid E Ghadeer. If be it what is, and when the son woke up, it is said that he said, Ya Ali Madad, or something along those lines. And the clip itself will say for itself. But why is this like an inferiority complex in the Shia community not to be as proud of the effects of our Ahlul Bayt on our daily lives, that they can help? We're not saying about miracles here. We're talking about guidance in our lives, and to be really close to them and hold on to them. There's like a, no, we're not sure. We need to check. There's always a question mark. Why do you think that happens?
Okay. The reason is, I don't know if you've ever heard of anyone who hasn't studied any Christianity, you've heard of the Doubting Thomas. Doubting Thomas. Thomas was one of the disciples that they say when Jesus walked from the dead, we don't believe in this obviously, that he did not believe, so Jesus says, touch me and feel the flesh that I'm back. So they called him the Doubting Thomas. So whenever anyone doubts anything miraculous, we'll call him Doubting Thomas. See, there's no smoke without a fire. See, what the problem is, you got a lot of people that spend so many hours giving lectures against the miracles of Ahlul Bayt and the virtues of Ahlul Bayt. Even a guy recently, and these guys, like, they are like pure devils. And when I say pure devils, I'm accountable on the day of judgment. If I'm not, these are pure devils. Why? Because what they do, they get educated in the Hawza and they study for the purpose of destroying the religion. To the point, there was one guy recently, he's from Lebanon. I think he's moved to the UK to spread his poison now. He's very articulate, that's why people fall for it. He has now, they've jumped, you know how they said Dua Nudba is false, Dua Tawassul is false. The new hit, he's hitting on Dua Qumail. He said Dua Qumail is da'if. And they're going to leave nothing in the end. The problem is too many people listen to this stuff and they become like this. They start to hold on. If a miracle from Ahlul Bayt happens, they don't believe it. They don't believe. You know, when someone asked me, I remember one of the brothers, he was in Qom, Al-Muqaddas, studying. And he returned back to Australia, had been there for a few years. And my father said to him, why'd you return? He said, I haven't been able to have children, I'm returning. So I can do ilaj, you know, I can do a treatment to get children. So then my father said, good, don't go back. And he said, why? He said, because you're supposed to get up on the mambar and talk to people about the ability of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. You are next to Hadrat al-Ma'asuma. You are next to Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. You come back. Especially, see, the thing is, let me tell you, people go, does that mean I don't take medicine? No, that's not what it means. There is medical treatment there. But even the doctors will say, we treat, but Ali ibn Musa is the one that cures. This is where you go. This is known. It's always been a fact. Today, now you get people go, oh, this is shirk. Have you heard this? People say, if you ask the Imam, this is shirk. You say, okay. Then the brothers of Yusuf committed shirk. When they asked Yaqub to do istighfar, they should have just went and did istighfar themselves. When Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam is eating on the sufra, he says about the food, هَذَا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولُهُ. Do you imagine someone says this food is from the grace of Allah and His Messenger? So Abu Hanifa says, أَشْرَكْتَ بِاللَّهِ. You've committed shirk to Imam al-Sadiq. Imam al-Sadiq said, how? He said, you have made a partner with God, as in Rasulullah. Imam said to him, have you not read the Quran? وَنَمَا نَقِمُ إِلَّا وَأَنْ أَغْنَاهُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. That whatever, that they only resented the fact that Allah and His Prophet, Allah and His Prophet, this is a Quranic verse, so no one can tell me hadith da'if. Quranic verse that Allah enriched them and His Prophet enriched them. And then it says min fadli. It doesn't say min fadlihima. It says from the grace of God. That means Rasulullah gives from the grace of God. He is a way. You know, sometimes people say, hold on, that God guides. I say Rasulullah guides. People go, oh, where'd you get that? Rasulullah guides. وَإِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Allah says, most certainly you guide to Rasulullah. Rasulullah guides. Everything comes through Ahlul Bayt. Allah says this in the Quran. It's explicitly said in the Quran. So this is when I hear a miracle, I should believe in it. Shouldn't have no doubt in this. If we have doubt, then what do we believe in? What do we believe in? What's the point? When I go visit Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when people ask, I tell them if I really want something, I won't leave till I get it. If I'm not going to get it there, you're never going to get it. Whatever I want, I go, even if I don't deserve it, I won't leave. Because I know it's there. This is what I'm saying. The problem is because the main problem, Hajj, is these people that are on YouTube, these people that are starting to fill up people's heads. Any one of these I'd call them muqassirin, they're worse than muqassirin. These people are devils. When I say devils, anyone that steers people towards this Wahdi movement, where this it's Shia Wahhabi movement, where they believe that Allah, everything else is shirk. You know, the person won't even call his wife for something because he might associate a partner with God. You know, or the wife won't call her husband to get something because she might do shirk with God. It gets to that point. So whenever he wants something, he says, Ya Allah, could you please do some, you know, what's it called? Could you get my child to do this thing for me? You know, like seriously. This is a lunacy. Afwan.
Raza bhai, would you we'll come back. Are you ready?
Read Zarat Ashura every day, COVID would not touch. Sorry. I'm saying it's not only the YouTubers, but there are also some sheikhs or some maulana sitting on the member and giving lectures which has an effect of that as well. So classic example is when COVID happened, a lot of maulanas on this member were saying, oh, if you read Zarat Ashura every day, you will stay away from COVID. And after a few weeks, that maulana himself had COVID. So this is... I don't know. Then the narrations are, one of the imams said, and so on and so forth. So anyway, so we have to be very careful when we're listening to majalis, lectures and everything, and always look out for the source. So my question was 2 questions ago when there were comments made around Imam Ali in the Quran and all, and I want to be very careful and so that I'm not disrespectful in any way. All the aqaid, Tawheed, Adl, Nabuwat, Qayamat are mentioned in Quran. The only thing that's not mentioned is Imamat. In terms of
how?
Like being Imam Ali as the Imam and, you know.
Okay, give me the other 4 that you mentioned explicitly in the Quran, please. Since you're so versed with that.
No, I'm not so versed.
Oh, then because you've said it. No.
I don't
listen to me. When you want to be confident,
I am confident, but I don't remember the ayah, so I'll try my level best.
Okay, go.
So the first one is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Qul huwa Allahu ahad. So that talks about Tawheed.
Yeah.
All right. There's an ayat in Quran which categorically says Muhammad Rasulullah.
Yeah.
I can't remember, so I think it's Surah.
وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, last verse in Surah Al-Fatih.
So Surah Al-Fatih. So that's there. And there's also about Qiyamah, which I can't remember on top of my head.
Okay. What is it that we have, for example, Bunya al-Islam ala khams. Islam was built upon 5. As-salat, was-siyam, was-sawm, the fast, hajj, prayer, fasting,
Yeah.
hajj, and zakat, and wilayah.
Yeah.
All right. You're saying wilayah is not present inside the Quran at all?
No, I'm talking about when we talk about the 5 pillars of Islam.
Yes.
The first is Tawheed, then we talk about Adl, Nabuwat, Imamat and Qayamat.
Yeah.
Right? So my point is, and Abbas, Haji Abbas, Al-Hajj Abbas Virji mentioned it very nicely, saying about the Quran to protect itself. But the example that he gave was about namaz not being mentioned categorically. So the counter argument that comes in is...
Do you want it to say that Ali is Imam? Do you want to say specifically like that? Or do you want it to say?
No, so imama, concept of imama in terms of imamat is like after Rasulullah there'll be imams, right?
Well, in the verse of wilayah, إنما وليكم الله والرسول والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. Then ومن يتولى الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا. It mentions 3. And another one, أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. That's 3 as well. That's 2 that explicitly mention 3. Explicitly. So who is the 3rd that's mentioned here?
That clears up, but anyways.
So yeah, who's the 3rd? There has to be, because this 3rd, if you look at the first, the one, Ati'u Allah, Allah is in its own station. Then the next one says, wa ati'u Rasul. It doesn't say wa ati'u ulil amr. It says ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amr. That waw al-atf, mentions the ita'ah, the obedience of Rasulullah is like the obedience of ulul amr is like the obedience of Rasulullah.
But that is the thing, right? When it says
so who's this
ulul amr, why can't it say imam?
Huh?
Wal imam or wali rasul. Why can't? What's the reason behind that? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, okay, then sometimes it might say Nabi, sometimes it says Rasul.
Yeah.
Why doesn't it always say Rasul? And in one case, because there's other verses that say Imma. وَنُرِيدُ لَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ. Sometimes it does say Imam. But in this verse, it doesn't say the word Imam. Do you understand these other verses? وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. There's other things that says all. Did Imam Ali say, سَأَلُونِ قَبْلَ أَن تَفْقِدُونِ, that I know everything. Allah says in the Quran, all knowledge is in this Imam. This Imam. Then they'll tell you, oh, the Imam, he is the Quran. Or the Imam, he is a book. You know, because just like Wali is a friend. That's why they can't be friends with Jews and Christians. Because they didn't understand the verse. What I'm trying to say is, if you want it to explicitly say the verse, it's like, you know, the Rashid Khalifa, the Quranist. He doesn't believe in the second Shahada. I was debating with one of his guys once, a long time. I was about 22 or 23. So I said to him, why don't you believe in the second Shahada? He goes, Shahid Allah annahu la ilaha illahu. He said he doesn't say this about Rasulullah. I said that Muhammad and Rasulullah. He says, yeah, but he doesn't say Shahida. This is like semantics. You know what I mean? When someone starts playing with words, it makes no sense. Like for you to say that I need it to say Imam. It says Imam here.
No, I'm not saying I needed to say it.
No, but I'm saying for me to say Ati'u ulil amr. Ulil amr means the ones with the authority. Because the Eid of Ghadeer, a lot of people you need to understand, Eid al-Ghadeer has never been called either Eid al-Imama. Did you know that? What's it called? Eid al-what? It's not even called Eid al-Ghadeer. Aslan, all the rights it's called Eid al-Wilaya. The Hadith of Ghadeer, written by At-Tabari, written by Al-Maghazali, is Ibn al-Maghazali, sorry. They all call it Hadith al-Wilaya. In the chapters that they have is Kitab al-Wilaya. It's all about wilaya, about governance. It's all about guardianship. It's all about authority. The station of Imamah is not even there. Ibrahim was an Imam. See, because someone comes up and says to you, hold on, Amir al-Mu'mineen is an Imam, but Ibrahim is an Imam and a Prophet. So but Ibrahim didn't have wilaya.
Yeah, I understand that.
So the wilaya is the highest station. Wilaya, there's no higher station than the absolute authority that's vested. Because you look at these two verses I gave you about wilaya, it speaks about a third party that has the same authority
As the Rasul.
as the Prophet. Who is this?
But that's making it vague.
Huh?
That makes it vague as well, right? That's where all the disputes occur.
No, but they know. See, the thing is, let me tell you something. All right. Here's the thing. And it's very important at this point. They'll come along, the people that want to argue this point. They say, look, the Prophet could have just said it. And we say the Prophet did. Your friend was burning books all the time. Burnt all the hadith. They know this. You told me your friend was... Here's another thing I'll tell you. Did you know when Abu Bakr took the Khilafah? Every time someone would call him, Ya Khalifat Rasulullah, he would cry. And they'd say, why are you crying? He said, I do not want this burden. They gave it to me. Amir al-Mu'mineen exposes him in Khutbat al-Shaqshaqiyya in Nahj al-Balagha. He says, بينما هو يستقيلها في حياته ثم عقدها إلى ابن الخطاب بعد وفاته. He said he was pretending that he didn't want it. Then why the hell did he didn't say those words? Yeah. Why would he give it to someone else? If I'm sitting and say, I don't want this burden, God, why would you hand it to the next guy? If I'm not worthy, I'll just walk away. It's like when Imam al-Rida was bought for Wali al-Ahd. When Ma'mun wanted to do this because he's cunning, Ma'mun, he said to Imam al-Rida, I want to give you the Khilafah. The Imam answered him a question that was bigger than a slap across the face. He said, if the Khilafah is, because Khilafah is Khilafah al-Muslim Mu'mineen, it's from Allah. If you are the appointed Khalif, then you have no right to give it to someone else. And if you're not the appointed Khalif, then you have no right to deal with it. In either way, it's not yours. Look, could you imagine someone's giving sadaqah out of your pocket? It's not your money. You want to be generous, do it out of your own pocket. The thing is, there's no doubt in the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib at all. At all. There's no, now what I'm saying, there is, even in Sunni text, there is no doubt. It's like when you mention something, and we used to do this Hajj a long time ago. I'd sit with people and we'd mention subject. And we'd say, if someone was to rebuke the Prophet or refute the Prophet, what is the hukm? Arad ala Rasulullah. They'll say kafir. Shia and Sunnah all say the one who refutes the Prophet or answers back the Prophet, he is a kafir. I said, what if somebody did this on his deathbed? So you put them in this, the second you say, the second they found out, the second they find out it's their guy, I said, brother. Why? Because it's just like politics. It's just like sport. It's theirs, it changes. It's like if you're asking someone who supports Liverpool and Manchester United. The Manchester United supporter will tell you Premierships, Premier League's more important. The Liverpool supporter will tell you Champions League's more important. Huh? Even if Man United makes a wrong signing, we still support them. That's right. That's the way it works. That's what I'm trying to say. So these people, they support in this manner.
Quick, please, very quick.
One
Short question.
Questions are short, answers are long.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say the short answers as well in a minute.
So, when Abbas bhai asked that question about why Ghadir was selected for, or Ghadir was the place where this announcement happened, logically, if we use our logic, human logic, we always feel that Arafah could have been a better place. Again, I'm trying to use my words better, so no disrespect, because everyone is there, all the Hajis are there. Why that place, Ghadir? Why people were called back? Why Rasul stopped for people to come in? Because there must be, in Arafah, everyone's there. So why not announce it there and make it big? Or Ghadir is much bigger because of this thing? Just if you can help clarify.
Look, okay. There's a reason for this. Sorry, Sheikh Muhammad Abbas, I've been answering everything. Look, there's a reason for everything, and the main reasons for this is specifically if he had done it in the Hajj, he wouldn't have had the same zing to it. Because when you, and besides the actual fact that Ghadir Khom was pre-selected, as I mentioned, it's like, for example, if Imam Hussein was martyred in the Kaaba, he wouldn't have given that same way. Karbala has this sanctity. Because if you look, if I tell you how many people have been killed in the Kaaba, do you know? Name me one. Does anyone know one person who was killed in the Kaaba? Abdullah ibn Zubayr. He's a big Sunni figure. Do you ever hear about that? He was killed there. How many people know about this? No one knows about this. You know, he should have died in the septic tank somewhere, but for some reason he was next to the Kaaba, but that's another reason. But Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen's coronation, his position, it had to be somewhere special. Because he's already blessed the Holy House. He was birthed there. That's his maternity ward. Then he goes all the way to Ghadir, is where he gets his coronation. There has to be a reason, a place where everyone congregates. Now you might say, all right, why wasn't it done in Arafah? We don't have any announcements for Arafah other than it's a place for istighfar and it has its own purpose. We don't want it to have the dual purpose. So a lot of the things, if you notice, a lot of the events, they have their own place. You don't have the multiple, for some reason Allah has made this so everything can have its own point. Besides the fact Allah has already set this before. He has chosen this land. Just as he chose Mecca to be for where the house is built. Just as he chose for Karbala to be where Imam Hussein will be martyred. Just where he chose Masjid al-Kufa to be the place where Amir al-Mu'mineen would get struck. Even when Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, when Imam Hassan took him to bury him, where did he go? He went and he said, we found a tomb, we uncovered it, was already dug up. And says this was dug by Nuh for Ali, the wasi of Muhammad. So it was already dug. Just like Rasulullah dug the graves of the companions of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein, all the companions, their graves were dug by Rasulullah. This is why when we mention their position, their graves were dug by the Messenger of God. So all these stations have already been selected. And people say Arafah would have been better. Then I'll tell you, hold on now. Why not Masjid Nabawi Sharif in the presence of where Rasulullah will be buried? You know what I mean? So then we start picking the land. But every land has a reason for its selection and to give it that significance. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. And when we say Allah knows best, because we see it as it unfolds. And the other thing, what's it called? With this, with everything, if you look, why didn't God begin the Risale in Mecca? Why did the prophethood, the hub was Jerusalem, and then it moved towards Mecca? Why? Why was that the Qibla first? What, didn't God already? You know, we have some people say, I've heard this, that Imam al-Mahdi, I've heard this, but I don't know if it's authentic, and I wouldn't care because, you know, because whatever he says happens. They say that he'll change the Qibla. They say this, I don't know, I haven't seen authenticity in this. From Mecca to Karbala. If he does this, this is normal. Because it's whatever they choose. The end of place, people say Mecca is the center of the earth. I say, what are you talking about? Every point of the earth is the center of the earth. You know? They may say, they want to make some miraculous thing about it. Yeah, but there isn't. The reality is Allah chose for one place to be, then he chose for another place to be. And this is how the system works. And until the whole fulfillment of the covenant of God is done on the earth and in the heavens.
Thank you, Sheikh. Sisters, any questions on the sister side? Today the sisters aren't asking questions. Okay. Sidetracking, Sheikh. I'm going to continue with you, Sheikh Mohammed, because we don't get you here very often. I know one of your... I know you might know a part of this movie, you know, Few Good Men. Yeah. You know the movie, right?
Yeah, what about it?
You know the part where the person is cross-examining about the code red, and he says, show me in the handbook where the code red is, and the other lawyer comes up and says, well, show me where the mess hall is. It's so obvious we don't need to have it in the handbook. Isn't it the same thing with Imam Ali alayhi salam, that it's not so complicated, that it is so obvious that this man, from the moment he was with the Rasulullah's birth, that he has been the leader for any blind person to see. In every moment of his life, he has been with Rasulullah. In every moment of leadership, he has been there, appointed by Rasulullah to go to the front line. In every single step, blind Freddy would tell you this is the next person.
Yes.
Does it have to be more obvious than that? The Quran doesn't explicitly have to say it, because it's saying, hey, you know it.
No, but you're saying it's right. It is obvious. It's very obvious. But that's not, it's not the issue. The issue is, if you notice, like, you get a lot of these new age, new Nasibis that tell you, we love the Ahl al-Bayt. Why is it anyone that narrates about the virtues of the Ahl al-Bayt, you call him a Rafidi? You know, if you say Ibn al-Hadid, who is a Mu'tazili, he's a Sunni, Rafidi. Why? Because he says the virtues. Even Imam al-Shafi'i, they used to hate him because he was famous for that poem where he said, if you are a Rafidi for the love of Al-Muhammad, then let all the jinn and the ins testify that I am a Rafidi. They used to say that because they would narrate hadith an Ahl al-Bayt. So pretty much, if you look at Al-Hakim al-Naysaburi, or Naysaburi, it depends on how you pronounce it. He's got a book called Mustadrak al-Sahihain. Mustadrak al-Sahihain is like, for example, if I do a work, a thesis or something, and I've missed out using similar sources, but I've missed out on studies that were extracted from the same methods, I didn't put them in my final work, someone will write a Mustadrak which says, using the same methods that you used, these should have been in your book as well. So Hakim al-Naysaburi wrote a book called Mustadrak al-Sahihain, using the same chains and the same methodology in extracting the hadith that Bukhari and Muslim did. He wrote a book bringing hadith that they didn't put in. So there are people that go out of their way to eliminate this. But it's still there. For example, there's a hadith where Aisha says, Qunna. You look at this hadith, and this is mind-boggling. She says, we used to. Nastadi'u. He says, we used to get light. In the darkest nights, this isn't, see, sometimes we say to someone, wujhakum nawar, that your face is luminant. That's one thing, they look bright. But this isn't like this. This is metaphysical. This is beyond understanding. She said, we used to get luminance from the face of Fatima in the darkest nights, so much so that we were able to put a string through the eye of the needle. We thread the needle from the light of the face of Fatima. This, how do you read this hadith and then you say, oh, she had an argument with Abu Bakr, but Abu Bakr is more truthful. And how, ma lakum kayfa tahkumun? The problem is it's there. It's there, but you need to want to see. See, if I don't want to see, you're not going to see. It's like what's happening overseas. If you ask people, they can see. Do you remember the time when the Ukrainians were getting hit, the beginning, and you had all these reporters that were saying, this isn't a war-torn Syria. These are people with blonde hair and blue eyes. They were saying this explicitly. That, you know, white people aren't fair game. You can't just kill them. Explicitly. And it was all over the news. Did anyone say anything? Everyone was very normal about it. You know, and then the people didn't understand this. And I think it hit them that bad, so they went and got Richie Sunak and put him in Parliament House, and then the First Minister in Scotland, they went and got, like, it's so funny, it's like a comical sketch. It's got to the point where the Englishman's run by an Indian, the Scots are run by a Pakistani, and the Irish are run by a homosexual with his husband running around. It's so funny, it's like, it's a cue for a joke, you know what I mean? It's got to that point. So what brought them to this point? You know, and I think they're trying to make up kafara for what they said about Ukraine. But anyway, go on, sorry.
You are going to get me in so much trouble. YouTube's going to block this video.
I didn't say anything.
I'm going to get a message very soon. Go on, this message. I think we've reached the end almost, and we have some poetry to recite. But I've got a question for both of you here. And I'm going to stretch your imagination a little bit here, okay? And I'm going to start with Hajj Muhammad Abbas VIRJE first.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Sheikh, yeah, but I need both of you to answer this. If Imam Ali alayhi salam had been given his rightful position, what situation would be in today, in 2023? What impact would it have had if that had happened? Hypothetically, I know it's a hypothetical question, but what do you think it would have had?
You start. I've been talking all day.
Yeah, it's a good hypothetical question. I would like to reverse it. If Shaitan would have not been expelled from God's kingdom of mercy, where would we be? So I think my humble answer to this is, I think everything happens within the plan and wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this whole issue of wilaya was definitely a test for the community of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who are those who are more, you know, steadfast and loyal to the message of the Holy Prophet? So I think in divine wisdom it had to happen to be able to sieve out. And at the same time, the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have been under persecution throughout time. And the more the persecution, the light of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam seems to get brighter and brighter. So I don't know the answer if it was otherwise. However, I just see that, subhanAllah, as time goes along, the light of wilaya just seems to be manifesting itself more and more. And this is, again, fits in the divine plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's my humble contribution.
You didn't say much, but you said a lot. He didn't say much, but he said a lot. What he said, what Sheikh Muhammad Abbas said at the beginning is the answer. There's a plan. You know, like my child asked me, he said, why did God have this? Why did he create the devil? Why did he create bad people? And I said, you know, like when someone goes to play a game, you know, you got your difficulty settings. How many people start on the lowest setting? No one. Because it's boring. If everyone that you meet, you shoot with a shot in the leg and they just die. You know? You want, if you got a level where they can respawn and it goes on and it becomes very difficult, you enjoy this. So I said to my son, when you're playing a game, if there's no bad guys, no difficulty, would you enjoy it? He said, no. I said, this is the reality. The dunya, for you to have some value, there's got to be a test. Otherwise, you'd have there's no test. If Amir al-Mu'mineen got into power, Imam Hassan already answers this. When he's going to bury his father, he said, had they accepted you, they would have eaten from beneath their feet and above their heads. And this is what would happen, but they didn't. And we even have a hadith that confirms this. That Rasulullah says, لو اجتمع الناس, if all the people united, على حب علي بن أبي طالب لما خلق الله النار. If all the people united upon the love of Ali, Allah would not create hell. Allah wouldn't create hell. It wouldn't exist. But then, where's the test? We're just using hypotheticals because it has to be a test. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen has to come to the earth. We have to see the worst of God's creation meet the best of God's creation so we can see the difference between good and evil. So we can see within ourselves. You know, when someone sits down and wants to commit a sin or do something wrong, he'll say, imagine Imam Hussein and Yazid were sitting right now. Which one will be pleased with me when I'm doing this? Who do I want to be pleased with me? When I'm taking someone's haqq, I'm taking someone else's money, I'm taking someone else's property, who's going to be pleased with me? Whose haqq was taken? When Amir al-Mu'mineen, you know, someone takes someone's inheritance. You have this a lot in our communities. Someone takes their brothers or their sisters. You have, especially in our community, in the Lebanese, I see they write the inheritance for the son. And I say, what about the daughter? The daughter has a haqq. And they say, oh no, she's got a husband. And I said, this is a haqq. I said, what about Fatima al-Zahra when her haqq was taken? Well, you are standing with the ones that took her haqq. Would you support this same idiocy, this same ideology that's wrong? This is the whole idea of the test. And that's why your question is la yakun. Sheikh Muhammad Abbas VIRJE answered perfectly. He said that if Iblis wasn't expelled, we'd all still be in the Garden of Eden. And then thinking what we're going to do, we probably all would have not only eaten the tree, would have eaten its roots too. So that's how what would have happened there.
All right. First, I'd like to thank both Hajj Muhammad Abbas VIRJE and of course Sheikh Muhammad. Just to give you quickly before, no, don't go yet, Sheikh. Sheikh, not yet. 1 second. Just leave it on if you don't mind. Sheikh Muhammad has also agreed to be here next week, and we will have the same thing with Mubaila, because there's always the debate of what came first, the chicken or the egg. So we're going to discuss Mubaila, and we will have him here next week. What I'm going to ask both of you, if you don't mind, to finish up before I hand over to Brother Ahmed, is if you had to choose one anecdote, incident, or something about Imam Ali alayhi salam's life that is your most favorite thing, right? Whether it's a saying in the Nahj Balagha or an incident that has happened to both of you, I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it. You've got to choose one for today, and Sheikh Muhammad, you've got only 30 seconds to answer this, not 37 minutes. Sorry. I can say this about Sheikh Muhammad. I've known him since he's very young, and he's been a dear friend, but his father, I must also give credit. I'm giving him time to think. For those who don't know, Sheikh Muhammad MEHDI's father was a very inspirational leader in Sydney, and he really guided us, and he was a leader that we really looked up to while we were growing up here. So the knowledge, and I can tell you, he's one of the most knowledgeable sheikhs that I'd ever met in my life. So while I give them the few seconds to think, if I could please ask one loud salawat for the beloved father of Sheikh Muhammad MEHDI, Sheikh Fahd, please salawat.
Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Okay, who wants to go first? They're talking about the food. The barbecue is almost ready. So, no, it's not ready yet. We have to finish the Shire program first. Who wants to go first? Your favorite single incident or anecdote? Sorry.
The food story. The
No,
bird story. Now the bird story.
Which one?
The one where a bird comes down from paradise and it's given to Rasulullah to cook. And he said, oh Allah, send your most beloved creation, the most beloved creation to me and you to eat with me. So Aisha sends one of her servants to go call Abu Bakr. So the servant goes, Imam Ali comes and knocks on the door. And Aisha, he asks, where's Rasulullah? She says, he's not here. So he leaves. And then he comes back and knocks on the door. Where's Rasulullah? She's not here. She's waiting for Abu Bakr to get there first. So on the third time he knocks, Rasulullah gets up and says, Idkhul ya Ali, enter O Ali. So Ali comes in and eats the food.
Muhammad Salawat. You are going to get me in so much trouble, this YouTube clip. Anyway. Sheikh Hajj Muhammad Abbas VIRJE.
I think, Abbas Nagal, it's the perfection of multiplicity in one personality. So it's, you have these, as our scholars say, the opposing characteristics that were perfected in Imam Ali alayhi salam. So the classic examples are the valor and courage and bravery that Imam Ali alayhi salam would show on the battlefield.
No, you have to choose one incident. I know that. I've
Yes.
asked you to choose one.
That's all. You setting us up. You did that.
Okay, I think, and then the way Sa'as ibn Sohan, I think, describes Imam Ali alayhi salam to Muawiyah, that Imam Muawiyah is asking him in a very ridiculing way, describe to me Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he says that I swear that I've seen him in the darkness of the night, standing on his mihrab, holding his beard, yatamalmalu, just shaking and shivering and trembling because of the awe and the humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these two opposing, perfected in one individual is.
All right. Thank you very much to Sheikh Muhammad MEHDI and to Hajj Muhammad Abbas VIRJE. We'll continue next week. All right, we will continue next week, but we're going to ask anyone who would like to question to send the questions in, and we can have that there. I'd like to now hand over to Hajj Ahmad Sachu, who is going to take care of the program from here. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad sallallahu
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Inshallah, we'll have Brother Abul Hassan to present his qasida first, inshallah. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Since everybody is hungry, I won't take much time, just small manka, but loud salawat, please. जो राह बर ना मिले रास्ता नहीं मिलता जो राह बर ना मिले रास्ता नहीं मिलता बगैर आले नबी के खुदा नहीं मिलता जो राह बर ना मिले दरे नजात पे जबी को झुका के देखो तो दरे नजात पे जबी को झुका के देखो तो इस आस्ताने से साइल को क्या नहीं मिलता इस आस्ताने से साइल को क्या नहीं
لو زیارت جو شوق ہے موسیٰ علی کی کر لو زیارت جو شوق ہے موسیٰ کہ کوہ طور پہ نور خدا نہیں ملتا کہ کوہ طور پہ نور خدا نہیں ملتا پڑے جو وقت پکارے رسول بھی جس کو پڑے جو وقت پکارے رسول بھی جس کو علی سا کوئی بھی مشکل کشا نہیں ملتا علی سا کوئی بھی مشکل کشا نہیں ملتا جو راہ بر نہ ملے علی کا ذکر ہے ذکر رسول ذکر خدا علی کا ذکر ہے ذکر رسول ذکر خدا کسی کے نام سے یہ سلسلہ نہیں ملتا کسی کے نام سے یہ سلسلہ نہیں ملتا جو راہ بر نہ ملے ور محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم.
Our son, Brother Abul Hassan, inshallah, will have Hajj Nasir to present his mankabat. Inshallah, Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
السلام عليكم شيخ، كيف صح؟ إن شاء الله بخير. أفضل الأعمال الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. وعجل بعض فرجهم وأهلك عدوهم. لا عذب الله أمي إنها شربت حب الوصي. لا عذب الله أمي لا عذب الله أمي إنها شربت حب الوصي وغذتنيه بالله وكان لي أبا يهوى أبا حسن فصرت من ذا وذي يهوى أبا حسن صلوات. ماذا أقول ماذا أقول بشأنه وجلاله وهو الذي بلغ العلا بكماله. والله أقسم في الكتاب بحسنه والشمس إذ كشف الدجى بجلاله وبوصفه الخلق العظيم ولم يكن فقد حسنت جميع خصاله ولولا جلالي لا كان العون العلا. فتنبؤوا يا سامعي الصوت يا سامعي الصوت صلوا عليه وآله صلوات. صل على محمد. خيرة الله من الخلق النبي وهو خيرة الله من الخلق النبي وهو جدي وأنا ابن الخيرتين. عبد الله غلاما يافعا وقريش يعبدون الوثنين. من له جد كجد المصطفى أحمد المختار نور الظلمتين. من له أم كأم فاطمة بقعة المختار قرت كل عين. من له أبي كأبي حيدرا حارب الكفار في بدر وحنين صلوات. عليهما يا رحمة عليهما يا رحمة توجه آيتي خدا را نبشر توانمت خواند نه خدا توانمت گفت. متحیرم که گویم متحیرم که نامم. علی ای همای رحمت تو چه آیتی خدا را نه بشر توانمت خواند نه خدا توانمت گفت. متحیرم چه گویم متحیرم چه نامم. پسری ابوالعجایب آرد به صحرا کربلا را. افضل الاعمال الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Inshallah, we'll have Brother Kumail to present his mankabat, inshallah. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
I'm waiting for the Sheikh to join in, inshallah. محمد وآل محمد صلوات صل على محمد وآل محمد. حيدر 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 حيدر
حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر حيدر.
علی دم ہے آدم کا مسیحا کا ہے مسیحا کبھی لہن داؤدی علی مولا کا لہجہ
کبھی موسیٰ کی ہیبت میں علی اللہ کا مظہر ہے. مشیت کی زبان ہے شریعت کی اذان ہے علی وجہ جہاں ہے آیا ہو کر نہاں ہے علی مولا ہے رہبر. حیدر 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 حیدر.
وہی شاہ مردہ ہے وہی شیر یزدہ ہے خدائی قوت والا وہی مرد میدان ہے.
صدائے لا فتح اللہ علی کا کون ہے محور لقب جس کا اسد ہے شجاعت کی سند ہے وہ تنزیل سمد ہے وہی سر عہد ہے خدا کا ہے وہ لشکر. حیدر 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 حیدر.
نبی نے کھم میں بولا علی من کن تو مولا خدا اکمل تو کہہ کر ہوا کچھ ایسے گویا
مکمل دین ہوا میرا ملا ہے دین کو رہبر لگے حیدر کے نعرے علی مولا ہمارے تو کچھ قسمت کے مارے یہ مجبوراً پکارے ہمارا بھی ہے سرور. حیدر 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 حیدر.
وقار صدرا کیا ہے مزاج کعبہ کیا ہے ولایت کے منصب کا سمجھ منصوبہ کیا ہے
سمجھنے کے لیے درکار ہے لیکن لہو اطہر علی ہی محترم ہے علی ابر کرم ہے علی لوح و قلم ہے علمدار حشم ہے علی نفس پیمبر. حیدر 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 حیدر.
مجھے گٹھی میں پلائے ہے مانے نہ دے حیدر مقابل میرے آدھا لرزتے ہیں سب تھر تھر
چھراتے ہیں نظر دورے روا کے مرحب و عطر یہ سب شکر خدا ہے حشم جو یہ ملا ہے میرے دل میں ولا ہے نگاہوں میں وفا ہے علی کا ہوں میں نوکر. حیدر 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 حیدر.
سماعت میری زندہ اسی ہے ایک صدا پر کوئی یہ مجھ سے کہہ دے زیارت کر جی پر کر وہ دیکھو سامنے پردہ اٹھا کر آ گئے حیدر
علی کا جو علی ہے وہ مہدی جو ولی ہے جو اول آخری ہے اسی کی خسروی ہے وہ زہرا کا دل بر. حیدر حیدر واحدا.
الصلوات اللهم صل على محمد. توجه زيارة.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الحجة المهدي، عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله تعالى مخرجه وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل يا ربي على محمد وآله الطاهرين.